Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in. I'm your instructor Joy. Let me first play a tune for you. This was a little excerpt from Bach Solo Partita number 3, the Prelude. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for your continued support. I really appreciate. So today we're going to talk about how one could practice properly, especially there's a lot of talk going on about slow practicing, and one of my students, or actually several of my students, was asking, is it true if one can play slowly that we can play fast too? And my answer is, depending how your practicing was. So it is true, don't get me wrong, practicing at a slow tempo so that we have time to watch what is happening on the right hand and what is happening on the left hand is very important. But we have to also understand this slow tempo practicing is so that we can play everything in fast tempo. So one has to remember, is it usable? Is it beneficial to play in a later fast tempo? So I'm going to share with you the 5 common mistakes that I see in my teaching studio when it comes to slow tempo practicing. Again, slow tempo practicing is necessary, but one has to know the purpose of this slow tempo practicing. Common mistake number 1, overly heavy left fingertip. You have to understand, when you play long notes, we can have the finger sink into the string. Or in this case, we can have all the fingers sink in, and then a lot of students will play, see if we can find the correct note, and then putting all the fingertip weight on the string. Even though that may feel great, but sooner or later, once you start playing the fast tempo, you will soon realize this kind of heavy fingertip, you will not be able to play fast. So while you're practicing slowly, make sure the fingertip stays very light. So much so, when you lift up, just enough so that it does not whistle, but just enough you can still make it beautiful tone. Same thing, 4th finger, don't overly press it. I'm almost lifting it. This would be whistling, that I put a little more weight. I don't know if you can see, I'm not pressing all the way. Just keep the fingertip super light, so that when you play later in faster tempo, your left hand knows already how to play with a very relaxed left hand. Common mistake number 2. When it comes fast passages like this, it's a great example because we're playing 3 strings, we're playing 4 notes very fast. We can get away lifting up each finger after each note, like this. When you practice slowly, but as you know, when you play fast, you cannot lift up. You cannot do that. So we have to leave these 2 and 4 at the same time, even though it's not double stop, but left hand behaves like double stop. With a light fingertip. So the way you practice would be, instead of playing individual notes, but rather as a double stop. And I like to use slurs. This will force the left hand to play multiple notes at once, and while focusing light fingertip, then you will have the left hand just perfectly ready for the fast passages. Common mistake number 3. Vibrating in the wrong way. When it comes to left hand tension control, I actually like my students to vibrate, but vibrate lightly enough to shake off the tension. But when I ask violinists to practice at slow tempo, we enjoy each note so much, so we end up vibrating like this. This may feel great like Brahms or Tchaikovsky, but you know, this kind of vibrato is just unusable or impossible in a fast tempo. If I do this right, this will be just too much. So not only this kind of wide vibrato, it's not necessarily very relaxing on the left hand, but it's just unusable. So you will be practicing, wasting your time. You may feel great, but you haven't really made any progress in that matter. So what you do is you place all the fingers. You can vibrate, and I actually want my students to vibrate just enough to shake off the tension, because vibrato, the nature of the vibrato, will only work when the left hand is healthily placed in. Or vibrato. Just enough to shake off. Common mistake number 4. Just like with sometimes put too much weight on the left fingertip. Similar things happen when we do slow practicing using each note very long. We tend to use long bows like this. Of course, I'm sure you don't do that extreme. But as you know, when you play fast, we have just no time to use a whole bow. It's actually very little bow. So here, when you are changing the form or the rhythm relationship with the left hand, then you can use whole bow, such as we did it earlier. We practice instead of individual single notes, we practice as double stop. Then you can use whole bow because you're changing music totally, the rhythm as well. And that is fine like that. But if you are practicing with a written bowing, the performance rhythm, then try to use the bow placement or the length of the bow that you can use in fast tempo, even at slower tempo practicing. So let's first practice where it is. Mostly, if you're not sure, mostly fast playing is good to be in the middle. The general rule of thumb, whenever you want to play fast one, use lighter part of the bow, which is rather upper half bow. Whenever you want a strong tone, use heavier part of the bow, which is from middle to the front, the heavier part of the bow. If you're not sure, just start from the middle. And there will be a good placement to start. So after practicing double stop for the left hand, and you want to check the see how you can do 3 string, then just play little bow first, open string, and then see if you can do hands together if you're on the correct space to do that, correct placement or correct timing to do. Notice that when I'm not necessarily playing very loud, that comes a bit later. Now, common mistake number 5. When it comes to fast passages, it's very, very important for us to see the notes as groups of notes. It's particularly more important when you have fast strings such as this Bach passages. Here we're playing A string, E string, A string again, then D string. So A, E, A, and D. Normally, we have to adjust our right elbow height for each string. But what I see as a common mistake when I ask my students to practice slowly, some students are too good and they over anticipate right elbow height, which is not gonna work for the fast tempo. Something like this. I'm sure it's not this bad, but I'm just exaggerating to make a point. But if I move this one elbow this much, even if I use less bow, I will get exhausted after playing 2 measures, even not mentioning the whole page. It's very, very physically difficult to do. So when you do that, then instead of playing slowly, see if you can have a 4 groups of notes in one bow. You start on one string, so place the bow in the middle where it's a pretty much good place to do, and then see with one impulse, try to create 4 notes like this. 1, and then push it sideways. Use a residue of the impulse and create another 3 notes. In total of 4 notes like this. Again. Here when you do that, notice that when I'm allowing my wrist to be flexible as well as the finger joint, which plays another very, very important important technical part when you play fast one. I'm initiating the movement from the forearm, but I'm allowing my wrist and finger joint to move along. Again, I'm bringing my forearm forward and then allowing the wrist and finger joint to go along. Because one cannot play both like this. That's again impossible to play fast. Slow you can get away, but fast tempo, all parts of the finger joint has to be super flexible. Comes from the forearm. That try to have a 1 impulse to create 4 notes. Emphasizing for the first one. Now next one comes. We want to place that right elbow height enough that we can move our right elbow height in a minimum, having advantage of flexible wrist, and try to create 4 notes. A, E, A, D. Again. I did not do. It's important that you don't create 4 individual notes, but I'm doing 1 impulse and moving elbow height very little, but I'm moving a little more actively the wrist, and then while keeping flexible finger joint, allowing my bow to move it. Again. If you're comfortable, then do a couple more times. And then if you want to get louder, then you bring bow a little heavier, closer to the bridge, and then a bit more bow in. If you want lighter, softer, then bring bow a little bit above the middle part. The concept is same though. And so on like that. I hope you can try and benefit right away yourself. This proper slow tempo practicing is very powerful. There are a lot more to that one, but these are 5 common mistakes that probably many of you can identify, because I identify myself. Sometimes I do the same mistake. Mistake is okay. We all make mistakes. But what is not okay is repeating that same mistake. So if it happens twice, 3 times in a row and it's not working, and stop and see what you can do differently so you can actually benefit from practicing which you're using your precious time. Yeah, I wish you all happy practicing. Thank you for watching and see you again. Bye bye.